Ironcast is a game that mixes match 3 games and turn-based steampunk mech combat with some roguelike features, which is not a combination of words I thought I would ever hear were it not for the Total Biscuit video on it back when it came out in 2015. So funny enough, I've actually had this game in my radar for the longest time, but I just never got around to buy it and actually play it. And subsequently kinda just forgot about it, sadly. But then suddenly this game shows up for free on Epic Game Stores, and of course I grab because free game, my dudes, is free. And in this case, a free game I had been meaning to play for such a long time. And here we are today finally reviewing that game and finally playing a PC game which I haven't done in quite a while, as we've been kinda doing a lot of Switch and Stadia reviews. And no, I don't count Stadia as playing PC games. It's streaming, it's a different thing, okay? But enough preamble, let's actually get into it. Starting with the story, Ironcast takes place in Britain and having you playing as the British in a 19th century steampunk setting as you fend off the invading French with your mechs, which are called the Ironcasts. And that's pretty much it. It's a fairly simple story as it's really primarily here to justify the world and the gameplay more than anything. There aren't really memorable characters or any crazy plot twists or even much plot development, which this part will make more sense in the gameplay bit, but regardless, it's just kinda there, which is a bit of a shame as it feels there could be something more here. The setting could lend itself to really interesting plot, but the game just never really takes advantage of it. It is very much a gameplay first kind of game, which is fine, but if your interest in this game came from the setting and what the game might do with it, you might be a bit disappointed. So let's move on to what the game actually focuses on, and that's the gameplay. Like I said at the beginning, this is a turn-based game using the match 3 formula, but what does that mean? Well, it's fairly simple actually. I would say this is one of those games that it's easy to learn, hard to master. The basic systems are fairly easy to grasp, but using them effectively is the challenge. So what are these basic systems? Well, during combat, you and your opponent take turns attacking each other or fortifying yourselves. This is done by consuming a set of, I guess I would call them expendables. There are 4 of them and they are called ammo, energy, cooling, and repair, which you collect each one individually by matching 3 or more of them in a row in the box that has the match 3 game. It is a very different type of match 3 game, or at least I don't remember playing any other one like this, in which how many expandables you get is decided by how long of a continuous line connecting those same types of expandables you create. And I'll give you a tip right now, and that is that you don't actually want to do that, as I did that a lot in the early game, just getting as much as I could with each play, but you actually want to hold on to a certain amount of expendables on the match 3 board, since making matches bigger than you need simply destroys the access, and that might screw you in the later game when you need them, as the board has a tendency of becoming a bit messy, and so less able to fill up the expendables, as you're not able to do as big or even match the expendables you need. Now, getting back to how you spend these expendables, you have 2 attacks, one for each weapon equipped, and these expend ammo, energy, and cooling, with attacks having different attributes that allow them to do more damage in a specific situation, like energy weapons do a better job against the enemy that has his shields raised. Speaking of that, we then have 2 defense options, walk and an energy shield, which expends energy and cooling, working in such a way that you can raise each one up to a max of 3 levels, with it lowering 1 level every turn, with walking up in your evasion and shields your general defense. As you can see here, all of these use cooling, which becomes a big part of the game, as overheating your Ironcast will lead it to destroy itself. So this is just something else that you have to manage during combat. The only thing that doesn't require cooling is the repair, which allows you to repair your weapons and shields, which is separated from health. You can have all your mechanics destroyed and still be alive. In fact, there aren't many ways to refill your base health, but regardless, the reason for this repair feature is because both you and your opponent can aim at different weapons and defenses to try and disable them, which is a big part of the game, as different enemies might have stronger evasion or stronger weapons, which you would benefit from weakening or force them to repair it, and they will of course do the same to you. It might sound simple, but it all adds up, and it does need quite a bit of strategy, and also it is a surprisingly hard game, at least it was to me, and there isn't really any difficulty options really. There is one I'm going to talk about, which is a bit disappointing. I do wish there was a bit more modularity, but oh well. Let's now talk about the other facets of the gameplay. While I didn't talk about everything in the kinda main active gameplay, most of it I will mention in some way here, so that's fine. So starting with the beginning, when you enter the game you can pick an Ironcast and its commander. Different commanders have their little stories, but the point here is really that each of them has a signature augmentation, which is a special passive ability that charges some aspects of the game. For example, Powell, your first character, has an ability where if you match 6 or more expendables in a row, it allows your next shield upgrade to cost 1 less energy. And this gives you an idea of how this works, and it's mostly small upgrades that make the game slightly easier by giving you different strategies that you can pull. Then picking the Ironcast, these also have a bit of flavor text to them, but more important here, there is a lot more variation stat-wise. Primarily the base health, the amount of expendables you can carry at each time for each expendable, which are both things you can upgrade using the currency of the game, but more on that in a bit. The other unique thing that each Ironcast has is their signature ability. These are active abilities, as in you have to activate them, and they usually have some sort of cooldown period before you can be used again. These do have a bigger impact on the game, and that's why they obviously can't just be used all the time. Like for example, the Dawn Raven, the first Ironcast you receive, has the ability to shoot missiles that don't cost anything, which seems pretty overpowered early on, but trust me, it's not. Now after this, you can acquire other passive and active abilities by leveling up during a run of the game, and spending that level up point you receive to pick up one of the upgrades from a set of random abilities. This can be passive or active, and then you can have up to 4 of each passive and active abilities, and also interchange between the ones you have at any time in between missions, which is one of those roguelike elements of the game, along with the permadeath, which I have yet to mention, as once you die you go back to the menu and have to pick a new Ironcast and commander, and much like other roguelikes, start all over again. And in this one, the progress you get is decided by the points calculated at the end of a run, where after a certain amount of them you will level up and unlock new Ironcasts or new operators, and also permanent boosts like getting 3% more health when ranking up, stuff like that. It is okay, but honestly a bit basic. Now let's move on to finish this off and talk about the actual missions and progression during a run. And basically you can pick from a set of missions to do. This is where you can actually have a little bit of control over the difficulty, as you can pick between medium and hard missions, and there is also some mission variety varying from survival, battle and gathering being the main ones. They all still work within the same framework of the match 3 but with different objectives. Battle, the most basic one, just has the objective of destroying the opposing Ironcast or Ironcasts. Then survival is very self-explanatory, as you have to survive for a certain amount of time, and gathering is slightly different, as you have to gather a certain amount of items from the match 3 board, which is surprisingly easy as you can mix them with your regular matches. As in, for example, if the mission is to gather a certain amount of boxes, you can make a streak where you go from energy gem to a box back to an energy gem. This also leads me to mention the other special gems on the board that I failed to mention before. One of these is the overdrive, which allows you to boost your next move, like making your next shield or attack stronger. And then one of my favorites, a gem that allows you to link between different expendables. Like you can go from cooling gems to link to then repair gem, being able to create a really impressive streak, which is important given I also failed to mention that you only get 3 moves each turn, with some exceptions relating to some specific abilities or when you destroy one Ironcast and move on to another within the same mission. Now getting back to the missions, there is an interesting variant to this gather mission where you're trying to gather something from the enemies, Ironcasts, so you have to destroy it without destroying that particular piece, which is again emphasizing the importance of picking which part of the Ironcast you are attacking during battle. Now at the end of each mission you receive rewards, and this might be XP and currency of the game, which is important to upgrade yourself stat wise and upgrade weapons and shields, as you can also receive blueprints for new parts which you also buy with currency. You can also gain currency of the game by matching it like you match the other expandables of the game, as they also show up in the match 3 bit of the game, but of course it is a bit of a gamble as matching them doesn't help you in the active fight. Now an advice I will give is save your money early on or spend it on stats, as you will eventually get much better equipment, and if you upgraded the early ones they don't really have much use, while higher stats will always be useful. Now to actually finish this gameplay bit off, you do missions for a certain amount of time, as after each mission an enemy boss approaches closer and closer to base, where then you are forced to fight it. So your goal is really to upgrade as much as you can before that time arrives. Now I thought that after you beat it, it would then end the game, but actually it continues in pretty much doing the same thing but slightly harder, and then after that you actually end the game. It's weird, but I guess it allows you to have 2 boss fights in one run if you win. Also, something that is a bit weird as well is that there is only one ending, which for me definitely put a dent on replayability, because it's already a slow game and the differentiating characters and abilities were not game changing enough for me to want to come back to it again and again, which I know is a bit of a sore note to end this bit on, but I will say that the time I did spend with the game I really enjoyed. The game takes around 2 hours to beat, but of course, because you are probably not going to beat it on your first run, it's gonna take a lot longer than that, and that just might depend on your skills and a little bit of luck. Now let's talk about the graphics. It is a nice looking game if you like steampunk aesthetic, and the design of the Ironcasts is really nice, but that's also about it. It sells the mood and the vibe of the world, but that's about it. Like I said, it's just very simple looking in a lot of ways, and a big part of it is the gameplay. It is a match 3 game, and for a game of that type, there is actually quite a lot going on visually. And as a turn based game, it does look okay. Different moves and weapons have different animations, and that's all nice, but also every run is gonna look about the same with just slightly different backgrounds. It's not bad by any means, but again, it just doesn't help with the replayability. And it's the type of thing that with games like Dead Cells or Binding of Isaac didn't start affecting me until I had put tens of hours into them, but here the repetition in the backgrounds and locations hit very fast. And I think the same will happen to you, even you have some sort of steampunk fetish or something. I okay. Moving to the soundtrack. Now it's okay, it's passable, it's war music if that makes any sense. The music you expect when there is two big metal things facing each other, and it's fine. Honestly, the best part of the sound here is actually the sound effects. They're not the most realistic sounding weapons or anything, but there is a weight to them that it felt really nice and detailed. It does push the experience up a bit for me. It's something that could have been easily missed, but it didn't. And this game misses in a lot of ways. Not so much in what it does, but what it could have done. It is a game that has gameplay front and center, and if you expect more of it, then you might not enjoy it much. And for those reasons, I'm giving Ironcast a 6 out of 10. I'll be honest, I wanted to like this one a lot more than I did, as such a unique gameplay, but it just lacks variety in a way that would make me want to replay it over and over again, like I have with other games in similar genres. I don't want to say same genres because this is a roguelike, but it's also a match 3. It's a bunch of stuff, I guess. But still, I enjoyed it. I don't want that to be misconstrued. A 6 is a positive score here on my channel, don't get me wrong. Recommendations wise though, well, if you got it for free, then absolutely you should give this game a try. It is unique enough that you should try, if only to see if it gels with you, I guess. Now, if you have to pay for it, it's also a game that is often very cheap, going many times under $5, especially since it's also 6 years old at this point, and under that price I would say it's hard to argue with. Just be aware that this is a slower game that you have to take your time with, and it's also a roguelike in a way, but it's also strategy, and you just remember that. Regardless of your decision then, I hope that you enjoyed watching, and if so, please consider subscribing, liking, and even commenting, all things you can do for free here on YouTube. And regardless of that, I hope you're having a good day, and goodbye.